Because, I mean, we're all a bunch of misfits where there's all things that we probably could have taken back, but life leads us to where we are. You've still had some amazing moments in amongst that mix. And funnily enough, two other misfits found each other in your journeys in between. Yeah. But Parramatta is where it first connected you guys. And that was a pretty gnarly year for you on the way out of Parra, but an exciting year for you. You finally got to tell the bloke that doesn't remember meeting you the first time. But Reni was someone that you looked up to playing to, and you finally played alongside?
Oh, yeah, 100%, being at school and stuff like that, like I said before, that Reni and stuff, when they came in, they changed the way everyone went to school, wanted to be like, Reni or Sonny or, one of those sort of Bulldogs players. Then, but yeah, so it was good when I got there and I knew Reni. It was actually a good reason why I wanted to go there. Reni was there, and I could see a lot of similarities between us both. And
too many.
Yeah, we got on really well that year. Look, we didn't go too well on the field. We got the wooden spoon that year.
We were premiership winners off the field.
Yeah, we had a good time off the field, but yeah, we actually lived. He lived underneath me. I lived on top of him, so it was.
So just for reference for people that are watching this, with Parramatta, they have a unit block that players that come from out of the area stay in.
They have two. So they have the Bronx.
The Bronx, yeah.
That's right next door to the Oval, and there's an apartment on Ross Street. So originally in my first year, they were putting me up in a hotel because
you were coming from the Bra. Yeah.
I didn't want to leave the Bra.
Yeah.
And then just the drive out there, like, it was just killing my back, and it was torture.
Because it's not to sound whingy, but it is like you guys are training a lot, and then Parramatta Road, that's a 2-hour drive sometimes, or an hour to 2 hours, depending.
It was a 3-hour round trip daily. Yeah. And I did have an apartment in my contract. I think that was above board. It wasn't. It was all part of the agreement. And I just thought the second year I've got to move out here. Like it's too much for me to travel. And I think I was about 30, 31 then. And our old mate here.
Also coming from the beaches, so long drive.
Was living upstairs. And look, it was a rough year, but it wasn't through lack of effort. No. We tried hard. We really, the preseason was tough.
That was the hardest preseason I've ever done. Yeah, because that was when Ricky Stewart came in, and it was the most physical preseason.
Because how hard is it for a player when you guys are going through deep training sessions? Ricky obviously ran you guys over hot coals, as he does. For a fan who's watching a team that they love and they support and they're so deeply entrenched in, and the losses keep coming, you get a wooden spoon and the fans go, do more, do more, do more. When you guys look on that same year of that wooden spoon, you've both spoken to me about how tough it was and how hard it was. Like, where did it all go wrong, or where could it have been? Like, if you could look back at that year now.
We tried hard, but you look at the no disrespect to some of but you look at the team that we had, there's some of the players, they wouldn't make NRL and other teams, we just didn't have the cattle, I think. Like, we tried hard, but we just didn't have the mix,
Yeah, it was like the preseason was tough, and we won the first game against the Warriors by 40 at Parra Stadium, and that was like the Parra back, it's the 80s Parra, and so there was. It's a popular club, it's a famous club, a very prestigious club, so they expect results.
Yeah.
And but when you're on the other end of it and you're getting beat every week, it's just, what is it? Flogging a dead horse every week. And it just, the confidence, the camaraderie was always there. It was just felt like.
And sort of when you get stuck in that, like you see teams now when like the Bulldogs maybe last year, the year before, when you start losing, it becomes a bit of a habit, doesn't it? Like, you think, you start the game well, one thing goes wrong, and then obviously your heads go down and think, oh shit, here we go again. You know what I mean? I remember that one time we went down to Melbourne, and it was Cam Smith's, I think it was his 350th game or something like that. and we came out.
300.
We scored.
Yeah.
We scored first, and we said, "Far out, we're
We're
on
on.
here." We got beaten 64-4.
All right, you know what? It's funny you bring up that game, right? So I think they put 40 on us by half time, and we're walking to the sheds, and Billy Slater and Cooper Cronk were having an argument over a play, and they're up by 40 at half time.
Yeah, wow.
And I'm looking at that, I'm like, no wonder you guys are the best.
Yeah.
You know, you guys have 40 points on us right now, and you're arguing that one of you weren't in the right position for a play. And you got to respect players like that.
Yeah.
You know, that just live and breathe the game and just have a high IQ and knowledge for rugby league, that they can still be competitive 40 points up. That's probably the only thing I want to remember about that game.
Yeah.
So yeah, like to go back to the para era, it was a tough 2.5 years there for me, but they gave me an opportunity after I spent 2 years out of the game. Like I'll always love para for that. You know, there was not many clubs, that wanted my signature, and para was one of them. And although that I still am probably my heart's with the Dogs, I still love and respect the blue and gold jersey and the people that are there, and the fans. The fans were still great.
Yeah.
You know, like there was because we lived in Ross Street. They were
always
weren't
around
getting
them.
abused or anything like that. They weren't giving a shit. So it's good to see the club going well. And I was really close with Brad Arthur, and I and his kids used to train with us.
Yeah.
And now
It's crazy,
yeah. So that's my take on para. I think my heart will always, part of my heart will still be with para.
Because you guys both have fairly different experiences, particularly with like Ricky Stewart. I'm like, just to touch on part of that projector series where, you know, a lot of your team walked in to finding out where they were going.
Yeah, look, I was very bitter towards Thicky, but I let him down as well. Ricky and I's relationship go from Australia to the Sharks to para, and that period where the players' names were put on a projector, that there was 12 players that were no longer wanted at the club. I was the only one out of the 12 that Ricky called me into the office before that meeting, and I knew what was coming. So I got to respect him for that. The thing that really turned me off that situation was the media found out about it that afternoon. I'm thinking, all right, so it's just the players and the staff, and there's 12 names up on a board, yet the media find out about it. So that obviously annoyed me, and I held a lot of anger for a few years after that, but I got to go back to Canterbury as well, which I wanted to finish my career at. And now that I'm older, I don't hold grudges against anyone. You know, you got to look within sometimes, especially with me and athletes in general with our egos.
Yeah.
We have an inflated perception of reality. We look through life through one lens. We never look at anything through perspective where you're looking through life, looking at the landscape with both lenses.
Yeah, it's blinkers on, right?
It's blinkers on, and when you're an athlete and you've got ego, you have a sense of entitlement. I'm hard done by. That's who I was that's who I was for a long time. And I don't mind admitting that. I think a lot of athletes, not just rugby league players, have too much ego when they move away from the game as well. You have to have ego to play professional sport. You have to have it.
Yeah.
But you need to know when to put it in check and look at life through perspective rather than perception.
How
that
did
makes sense?
It 100%. But how, like, both of you found pretty early success when it came to clubs. So Premiership 2004. Were you part of the Premiership with Manly?
Yeah, I got suspended just before, but
but still part of that ride, right?
Yeah.
But both of you really, really early injection to the epitome of Premiership glory. To then go from that to the stark contrast, and not to pick on the para era, but to go from that to that. What did you learn as a player? Because that's a big, like, you're on a pedestal, you've won Premiership, that's like chest beat, I'm the best
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm part of the best in the game, not I'm the best. But to go from that, from a Manly point of view, from a Bulldogs point of view, Bulldogs, to where you guys went with to go wooden spoon.
So towards the end of my Canterbury career, that we all dropped off. So from 04 to 08, one player left with left, and we all, looking back now, we didn't realise how good we had it at the club. Unfortunately, money comes into play, and clubs start chasing players and offering big money, and we couldn't stay together.
Yeah,
and probably we needed to break up as well for the longevity of our careers, because we had too much ego in that side. When the bright lights of Sydney are most of the time a nightclub, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
We partied hard, but we trained hard, we played hard. When I went to Para, I quickly realised how much I not missed the Dogs, but how much was missing from that club to be successful. It was, holy shit, this ain't it. They're so far off. Great guys, great people, great club, but just didn't have the foundation to be a successful club again. And that's what I noticed the first week I was there.
First week.
So I'd spent 2 years out of the game. Within a month, I was having conversations with the coaching staff about how we should play. I thought, oh, fuck, I'm the one that's been out for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's not to disrespect anyone. And I look at that as a sign of respect from the coaching staff at that time for them to come to me. I just didn't look at myself as someone who was a leader. Coming from a successful club and had done well, I think people initially thought that he's from the Dogs, he's won a premiership, he's played for Australia, we can lean on him, when I needed a hug as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it was, the warning signs were there for me. I thought, and it wasn't the current coach's fault. It just slipped away from him for over the years. And see, it's someone like Hindy, right? I love Hindy. He's one of the best players I ever played with, but he led with his actions. He didn't want to get up and say these big speeches and try and motivate people. He motivated through his actions. That's the player he was. Tim Manor was probably too young to be a leader, but led with his actions.
Yeah.
When I first arrived there, I just knew there was a lack of leaders. Nathan Kalis had already retired. Birdie was there, but there was a lack of leadership amongst the club.
Yeah.
Therefore, it was pretty obvious to me that we probably wouldn't do as well as we'd like. At Canterbury, when I was there, you had Steve Price, Glenn Hughes, Steve Reardon, Corey Hughes, Adam Perry, Tony Grimaldi, Dennis Scott, all these guys that were good men and good leaders, that all the young Polynesians, me, Mace, Tong, Sonny, Thursto, we all fell into line, so you need that up there. You just need a good, it's basically like chemistry. You need the perfect chemistry to have the perfect team. You need a bit of everything. You need the churchy, you need the party boys, you need the talent. And it all just molds together as one. At Para, I think we were too bottom heavy. We were a little bit like...
What's bottom heavy though? What is the bottom?
Bottom heavy in terms of there's talented players, but we're not leaders.
Yeah, okay. So too much individual talent, would you say?
I would just... We needed more guidance. We needed a parent figure, more parent figures. Even though Hindy was a parent figure, we needed more of them.
Yeah, okay.
Every club needs more of them. And that's why winning a comp might be so important. Like in winning a comp, your recruitment, whoever's doing the recruiting is an integral part of making a club successful. You might look at a player and say, fuck, he's so talented. You might get to know him and he might a little bit off. No, he's not going to fit in that environment. We're going to bypass him. It's got to be you. There's so many variables when it comes to picking a team. It's not always just about the talent. You need the hard workers to complement the talent, because sometimes the talent don't want to do the hard work.
Was that the same for you, Das?
Yeah, so I think so that Manly team is exactly like Reni. We had those really strong leaders. The older blokes, we had like the Stewarts, Brett Stewart, Chalk, Watmo, Jason King, Brett Kite, Steve Maddai. So when you were a young bloke going in there, like you would go in there, you wouldn't even say a word, anything like that. You know, now you see the youngest are the most vocal, you know, carrying on and stuff like that at training. Like I was too scared to even say a word, you know, and they just had the really good mix. And like Reni said, like they would play hard, they would party hard, but then on the Monday you get to training and they were like ripping in like, so we'd play on a Friday, Saturday, they'd say, right, everyone to the pub. We'd be 25 deep at the pub, you know, everyone together. And then Monday, we're having a pose. There's players trying to punch on with each other at training because they're so competitive and they're just ripping in, you know what I mean? And when I went to Para, I sort of, my actions, like say, you know, I would sort of try and play hard, party hard, but then at times I wouldn't get back into that, you know, the Monday, because you were expected at Manly. There was no, like, you're straight back into it, training harder than, you know, so my sort of actions off there, and then that sort of like let me down a bit. But
so do you think it was because you were surrounded by people with the same expectations at Manly, where at Parramatta you weren't?
Yeah, well, there's just, I guess so. But like, you just knew what was expected. Like when I made my debut at Manly, like you know what's expected of you when you're on the field. Like you didn't want to let any of the other boys down because it's such a tight group that if you're an outcast, if they don't like you, well, you're out. You may as well just change clubs. You know what I mean? So like sometimes we would have training sessions and the boys would say, right, we've had enough. Let's wrap it up to the coaches, and they'll say, oh yeah, okay, sweet. That's just what it is. But you sort of take it for granted. I thought, oh, this is just normal. But then you think back and like. And we had a good mix that 2011 year. Like we had the real older blokes, but we had some of the young players like Will Hop, Cherry Evans. That was his first year for, and but like Reni said, you just have to to win that comp. You have to have the perfect amount of luck with injuries. The culture is so important. Like we didn't have a culture. There was no culture at Parramatta. But I just don't. You know, like I just don't know. Yeah, I don't think.
I think Brad Arthur brought that into the club.
Yeah.
And I saw that from Brad in my first year there.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't know who Brad was, and he'd come from Melbourne. And there's no surprise to me that over his 10-year tenure that they've had success. Obviously, I'd love him to win a premiership, but Brad was about it. He was that militant, trained hard. His kids trained hard. If you break him down, he's like a real good guy. Like you can have a beer with him and have a laugh, but he was just that focused sort of, didn't know what he was thinking. And then when he took over as head coach, they started getting success. You know that he created a culture and an identity for them. So that's no surprise that they're doing well now because of people like Brad Arthur. But to be off the back of what Darcy's saying, it was just like a club with just headless chooks just walking around a pen, bumping into each other. Where do we go? Hey, you be the leader. Are you be the leader? Oh, you've come from that club. Like, we needed guidance. Everyone needed guidance.
Also, there's a lot of they went through a lot of coaches.
Yeah.
High player turnover. The board and stuff that was in turmoil. There was they were just at each other all the time. But and they seem a lot more stable now.
Yeah, that's the problem of being such a powerful club and having, Ray Price come down to training and tell us to do 10-kilometre runs before a game. You got to respect guys like that. He's done everything.
It's hard to say no to that.
And he probably did a 10K run before every game, the day before, maybe the morning of. But everyone has their opinion of what success looks like, and you need the perfect balance of people across the board, from the top, from the chairman, the CEOs, right through down to the winger.
Well, let's look at the two clubs now, or even Manly. So we'll tap off three clubs before we go into Toronto chat to wrap us up. Bulldogs now, Ciraldo, obviously coming from a really dominant side with Penrith, came over defensive coach, massive high hopes, didn't go smooth sailing. It wasn't the Cinderella story we all wanted to see last year. This year, it's like we're starting to see them gel. Bulldogs, different side.
I rang up someone at the club this week and just said how proud I was of the and I don't know any of the players.
Yeah.
Like none of them. And I said, man, I was so proud to see their effort against the Sharks. They didn't get beat by effort, they got outclassed. It's as simple as I could put it. Round 1 against Para, because that's a grudge match for us, I was a little bit pissed off. I was like, like we win.
Who did you go for in that?
Oh, the Dogs.
Your Dogs, yeah.
But that's when every round 1 was against Para when we played, and that's the biggest rivalry for Western Sydney. It's like when we play Para, we beat them. So watching them round 1, I started to question positional play and, just being an ex-player and back in my day and, you have those sort of conversations. Yeah. I'm not generally like that, but I was annoyed. And then round 2 against the Sharks, I saw so much effort and I'm like, fucking oath, boys, It goes back. And then obviously round 3, I was so proud of them. But they haven't dropped off their effort and intensity in 3 rounds. And that's what I'm proud of. Everything that Cam is building there is going to work. I'll tell you why. I went to SG Ball. I went to 2 games in 2 weeks. I don't watch footy. I just segregated myself away from the game for a few years. So I go out to SG Ball training. The level of intensity, the detail, the intent, I was blown away. And all SG Ball is Chem's is the mouthpiece that trickles down through the grades.
Yeah.
So everything they were doing, their drills, it was all from Chem and their coaching staff. And I know that club's in a good place. They're going to be a fucking good club and get more wins, and they're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Every club fan wants results straight away. When you watch the game, there's little 1%ers and habits in the game that some people can appreciate, that fans don't sort of see. Their habits on the field, I'm like, this team's going to be, they're on the up.
Yeah.
They get a few more signings. They're going to be a dangerous club again for a long time. And I don't even know Chem that well. Like, I've got no reason not to throw knives at him and Gus. I look at it from my perspective and go, hey, big things are coming for this club.
You bleed blue.
It's not that I do bleed blue, but I know what winning looks like.
Yeah.
And they are going to be winners.
What about like Darcy? I think it was a conversation, not a conversation, it was post-press match. And Sieb said our energy levels was really hard to get over in that last game. Watching these first 3 rounds, seeing the amount of injuries that we're seeing, it's almost like we're in the last 2 rounds before we make the top 8. The intensity that this season has started with is hard enough for the fans to keep up with, let alone as a player. We're looking at Manly already going, energy-wise. Like, what do you make of it?
The thing is, everyone's just getting so much fitter, faster. The athletes now in the game are just unbelievable. Pre-seasons are just as hard. Like every pre-season you'd go, that's the hardest pre-season I've ever done.
Yeah.
But it always
it
would always take me like 10 rounds to, there's nothing like playing a game. But like I watched that Para versus Manly game on the weekend. That was like semi-final intensity.
That was such a game.
Everything that we're watching is just like, you're like,
no wonder everyone's getting injured. Like, I don't know how you can sustain it, but I reckon this is the best shape the game's been in. But I really do think that there's not enough quality players for another team. But I hope another team comes in. I hope it's a New Zealand team. I think they should get a New Zealand team. But I feel like there's just a big gap at the moment between the good teams and the teams down the bottom. But
you say that. Let's look at the difference between West Tigers last week to this. The week before to this week. And Benji made a comment. He's like, I'm telling my players to not think and trust their gut instincts, which I imagine was what he wanted to get told as a creative player he was coming through. he's now telling his players it was like they were relaxed.
Yeah.
They
look
trusted
good.
themselves. They didn't try and overplay it, which was kind of the footy that we normally used to see from West Tigers. Someone would always try and overplay. Luke Brooks, for example. To say that there's a massive difference between the two, we look at Sharks one week, then the following week. There's a sparse difference between a good game and a bad game at the moment, with good sides and bad sides.
Yeah.
They're both St. George, another example.
Yeah, hard to read. Consistency, I guess.
Consistency's
There's a lot of
not
inconsistent
there, but it's
teams,
week
I guess.
4 and we're
Yeah.
already questioning
I
it,
think
right?
this is the closest competition I've seen in a while. In terms of even the bottom teams knocking off a top team.
Yeah.
So I was in and out of watching the game, and I'd watch a bit of last year, the year before that, and just clearly by far Penrith were the best.
Yeah.
Everything they did was their intensity, everything. It was like, they're the best. They should win it. Then there was Brisbane last year. They're the two best. They should be in the grand final. Now you got the Roosters. Now you've got Manly. Warriors are still doing well.
Yeah.
South are on the slide. But to your point, someone like the Tigers can knock over the Sharks.
Yeah.
It's probably the closest competition I've seen in years. And that's why I'm probably enjoying watching the game even more. The athlete these days, these kids are fucking unbelievable. They're all just big, fast, strong.
Look at Xavier Coates' try on the wing the other day. That was insane. And he's training for that.
Yeah, and like I'm not one of those ex-players that go, back in my, sometimes.
Yeah.
Some things.
Sometimes.
Some of the stuff they do off field's a bit corny as fuck, but but they're athletes, man.
Yeah.
And they are like, I was a small back rower playing. You can't be fucking shorter than bloody 6'3" now, 6'4", 6'4". They're all big, powerful athletes. They train hard, and I think from Vegas right through to what round are we?
Round 4 coming up now.
I haven't enjoyed watching that many games in a long time.
In a whole weekend. Normally you go 1 or 2 and then meh. If I watch it, I watch
if
it.
I'm awake for Friday night game I'm watching.
Well, before we
Usually
wrap
Thursday.
up, I want to touch on, because we hear Darcy loop around on Toronto a little bit, and the only reason he got to Toronto was because of you. You recruited him to go over to the Toronto Wolves. So where I'm going to tip the conversation off here, the boys played over in Toronto post Australian Rugby League, post English Rugby League, headed over to Canada. Darcy has a bitter pill lodged in his throat so far sideways.
I got out of there before that.
Well, I know. That's why I was like, you're smiling. He's not so
much.
much.
I'm still waiting for my management fee of 6%.
When I get my 4 years of wages, I'm over.
Take us through Toronto,
I don't know if
boys.
it's
Where
a
did
good
it
thing that I got
start?
him there or not. So it was a
Where
bad
did
thing.
it start, though? Because you went over first.
No, it was great.
So I was 16 months retired, and
Oh, you were done and dusted. You were boxing at this stage,
at the
right?
NRL, had a fight, feeling good about myself. Never
Welfare manager.
Yeah, I've done it all. And I get a phone call off of, I was like, who's this? And it was my old Lee coach, Lee Centurions. He'd taken over at Toronto, and he said, look, Ren, I just need you to come over and play 12 games. We just need someone with a minimal amount of profile to come to this Toronto team. I said, mate, I haven't made a tackle for 16 months. What do you want me to do? I'll give you this much money. I said, book me a flight. I'm on the next flight. And by that stage, I had I was working at Fox and had the NRL. So it was life after footy was on the climb.
It was going well.
It was going okay. So then I'm on a plane, and they wanted players, and Darcy's name. When did you come over? The following year?
18.
18. So then we got Chase Stanley over, Darce. Ricky Latelli came the year after that.
Yeah.
We had Ashton Sims there, Josh McCrone. Who else is there?
It's a decent side.
Yeah.
Playing reserve grade essentially.
Right.
So the first 8 weeks of the competition we're playing in England, I break my
Ankle again?
Ankle. I was actually stoked. I was like, I don't want to play another game. It's fucking 36 by this
How many
stage,
times
so-
have you broken your ankle, by the way?
I've had them both reconstructed. at least 6 times, I think.
Okay, so you went into Toronto as a liability for ankles.
Pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
And the fields over there are great, like really even.
Really flush.
And I did my ankle, and then I said, "Oh, look, I'm just going to go home." And they're like, "No, we're going to take you to Canada. We've got another." I was like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, just come on as welfare manager." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that." So then we lived in Toronto and played the back end of the season there, and yeah, it was
so good. It was the best
like,
experience of
And
my
then
life.
you guys recombined. What was that reconnection like for you, Dars?
Right, we would we would play in the middle of Toronto at the field. We ended up getting like 8,000 to 10,000 people there a game, and it was like they had like the full halftime entertainment, and then they had the beer garden all around the field. And we were getting paid so much money, and like so we would go out and we'd beat like Batley Bulldogs by 70. And then it was just like we would just go and drink, and we're in the middle of Toronto, and it's like it was just like we'll go into the NBA games, like we'll see like LeBron playing. We'll go to the baseball and stuff like that, and because like the comp that we had such a good team, and the comp we were playing in was pretty much reserve grade, so it was like easy footy.
The poor punters you were playing against, or playing against
but
first grade
they
rugby
were just
league
happy
players.
to come to Canada as well, so
Right.
they'd already sort of
Yeah, they would go there for like a holiday, so they wouldn't even come wanting to play footy.
Yeah.
but-
So that was like their kind of like boys at the end of the season, like fun footy trip, playing against a bunch of former first graders.
Yeah, and we like, and I'll just go to Reni. Oh, I need you to look after me, welfare officer. Should we go for a beer?
These are the two worst people to have
Even
a
that.
welfare meeting.
I needed the welfare.
But no, it was such a crazy experience. And then like we were flying between UK, Canada. Like we live in the best of both worlds.
So we
and,
did
like,
like a 8-week stint first,
Yeah.
and then we went home for a couple of weeks, and then we go back over for another three weeks.
Yeah.
And that was because none of us had like experienced almost that American style atmosphere. You know, you go to a sports bar and there'd be just screens everywhere, basketball on, baseball, everything was just so big. They call Toronto mini New York. So every day, you instead of doing recovery, you wanted to get on a bike and go through Toronto, through the city, go to the shopping centres and go shopping and look around town. It was a recipe for disaster, really. And it was a disaster in the end because we got beat in the final and we didn't get up to Super League. Yeah. But the experience...
And then for Darcy, he didn't get paid.
Well, I left by then. If I was still there, I would have got my 6% and he would have got paid.
And you would have been having the welfare management meetings with him about it.
His welfare officer looking after me full time.
Yeah.
We had a great time. And we were there in the summer. Yeah. So I know it's a different place in the winter. But... man, what a place. I'd love to go back. And they love Aussies.
Do you think there's space in the game for it to go back?
That's what I was about to say. Like so you see that they trying into Vegas and stuff like that. Like the Super League had a foot in that door. Like it was, we were really starting to take off there. Like we had 10,000 people in the middle of Toronto at our games.
They had no idea what was going on, but
they were in it.
Towards the end, they were like we would go to like bars and they would see us the same as like the basketball players and stuff like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, the Toronto players come on in, and we're just thinking, we're peasants.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, they were treating us like
treatment, like in the city. Yeah.
Wow.
And we're just walking through. Oh yeah, we're killing it. How good is this?
As a welfare officer, I had to be out with them.
Of course. Well, you make sure they got home safely. But do you know, like, so the combine in Vegas, there was obviously the Vegas Nines, which happened beforehand, which encouraged. There was quite a few American teams. There was Canadian teams. In the combine, it was men and women. Meg is one of the female, and she played in the Canadian Women's World Cup side in 2017, and she won the combine with one of the other girls, Micaiah. And she basically said when they finished the World Cup, they went back. There's no rugby league in Canada, and she helped try and establish rugby league because it didn't exist for women. And now she's over here playing or trialing out for a new side. Potentially an NRLW player this year. It's exciting to see where it's come from, but there's still potential. Maybe you guys were there
Well, the thing
before
is,
your
the Super
time?
League are just so the people running the Super League are just so ancient. You know what I mean? They just want the original teams.
Well, what about the
Yeah.
chats that NRL might
Well,
buy
they
the
should
Super
because the
League?
Super League is
It's
it's
a growing
embarrassing.
market.
It's embarrassing the people running the Super League. Like they have a good product over there. You know what I mean? But I feel like they're like 10 years behind the NRL. The people at the clubs, they work so hard. They do a good job, but a lot of them are just surviving. You know what I mean? Like just surviving. Like you've seen some of the things that they have to do over there, and even some of the facilities. They're no better than the local grounds. You know what I mean? But they just the people running it. I just feel like it needs a bit of an overhaul. But if the NRL take it over, I reckon it's probably the best.
There's a huge market in North America.
Oh, massive.
Really?
Oh, just in sport in general.
Yeah.
Is it
Like,
expats playing the
no,
playing
I
the
wouldn't
sport
say
over
that.
there,
Like,
or
I'm
is it
just saying,
current?
if we grow our game,
Yeah.
not a lot of people can make NFL,
Hmm.
right? Or rugby union. It's another contact sport. Everyone likes high collision action. And think about, well, how many people in Canada? I don't know. There's 350 million Americans. There's a market for it there. There was a competition back there. There still is now, rugby league around New York, Philly. A few of my mates went and played over there. When the GFC happened, it collapsed, but it was on it started to grow. So I think Super League have dropped the ball and NRL have picked it up, and it's going to be successful.
What about when you guys were playing in Canada? Was that all former Australian players? Was there any actual American or Canadian talent in that side?
Ryan.
Yeah, we had one Canadian kid.
Oh, Canadian, yeah.
Yeah,
Fuck, what's his name? I just forgot his name.
Quinn.
Quinn.
Yeah. And he played. Did he play?
He was
one
actually,
game?
his dad is a Kiwi.
Yeah.
He might have played rugby over there. He met his mum, and he was big. He was Sonny Bill.
Yeah.
Same size, mannerisms, but he had a Canadian accent, and I think he's doing quite well. So we had one Canadian and one American in our squad.
And did they struggle to find, like, I mean, you talk about them formerly playing NFL mostly, so it'd either be attack or defense.
Quinn, the Kiwi kid, he had a natural knack for it.
Yeah.
Ryan was like a winger, real quick on the wing. He played for America in that as well. But the rest were just Australians and English.
So we're talking about growth of the game. We're obviously going back to Vegas 2025. The Vegas Nines will increase. The Combine will increase. Do you think there's opportunity for those athletes who don't make the NFL, and same with the women, that could potentially grow, and the likes of Toronto to come back in the mix?
When they hold those comments, I think it'd be very, very hard for a player who's, say, in their 20s just starting rugby league to even get close to the NRL. But you know, if they want to start a competition, there is a market for it over there. Whether how big it gets, I'm not too sure. But so is that what they do? They have the combine there to see if there's any players to come
correct.
to the NRL.
Yeah, so it was on the day of game day.
See, I disagree with that. I think if Jared and Val went close with a population in Australia of 30 million, and you've got 350, 400 million between Canada and 450 between Canada and America, the chances are there's going to be athletes in their early 20s that can potentially come into NRL or be worth giving maybe a top 30 spot to come and trial. The longer we stay in the States and have that game and they develop a competition within North America, it's only a matter of time before they produce players that understand rugby league.
Well, they're actually going to... I remember when I just finished with Toronto, they were starting up a competition in America, and I actually got contacted by the Las Vegas team. They call themselves the Las Vegas Aces.
Worst team that
and I've just gone, oh.
Can you imagine?
Did you make a smart choice last year?
And no, the thing is, I said, I said yes, whatever. And I think they were going to pay me it was like a livable wage and stuff like that. It was like, I think there was going to be a team in San Diego, Vegas, and I said, oh yes, like this would be fine just to top me off. But then COVID ruined it.
That actually gives me the horrors.
Thank God for COVID.
Yeah, I know. It's probably I wouldn't be here probably, but But yeah, so I don't know whether they want to get that back up and running, because I know there's that team up in there in the New York. I think they're called the New York Kings or something like that. I think a few Aussies have gone over there and played. But, you know, until someone actually does it and there's funding for it, yeah, see how it goes.
So obviously you guys have spoken about America. We go back to Para and we go back to that first time you met in the cross. Is it a little bit surreal? You're now sitting on some leather lounges beside each other today doing a podcast. A little bit of... I wouldn't call it full circle. It's like a little bit of it.
Yeah. We've had an eventful, what year are we now? What, 10 years? So
2024, Dal.
Yeah, 2024. So yeah, 10, 11 years. But
and we've got more events coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on a bit of a podcast tour this last few months.
Don't mind a
And
podcast.
then, when I thought, nah, done with podcasts, no more. And then I got a message from the old mate here, and I knew you were on here, Ren, and I thought, all right, one more. And
farewell tour.
Yeah.
Farewell.
The Johnny Farnham
We may as well go
farewell
have a drink to celebrate.
Yeah, 100%. So, and we'll celebrate it at Fisher's, and it's the first week of May. So
look out.
Well, I won't be there, but it's been really lovely to catch up. I've known you for about 10 years, I think, Ren. I think is what we worked out back in Titans days. And loved having you on here. Love seeing your journey. I know it's had many peaks and troughs, as is this one, as have I. But I'm excited for what's next for you. What are you doing work-wise anyway?
So I've got my own cleaning company, and I'm
Yep.
currently working for a good friend of mine, Command 51, who's got a cleaning company. So, yeah, that's sort of my focus at the moment. So chasing business, if anyone wants to throw.
Name drop the business if you'd like at any stage.
Mine's Maitua Solutions.
Yeah.
I named it after a Maitua is a chief, is to serve the people. I wanted to keep it Polynesian, and that's my Samoan culture. And, yeah.
Do you think you've been a good Maitua for Darcy?
No. And I do have my Maitua now, so I need to be better.
Darcy, thoughts? Fun thoughts?
Mate, we've had, you know, Ren's been a great mate. You know, he's always someone you can rely on and have a good time with. So many more years to come.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for doing the Johnny Farnham tour and coming back out for one show only. That means no other podcasters is allowed to touch Ren. We are his
Finishing on
last.
ours.
Yeah. Don't forget to like and subscribe to all of our podcasts. And also, if you want to deep dive into all the rugby league stats and facts, go to The Scrum, which is also one of our amazing podcasts with Big Les, Ace the Mace, and Darcy Lussick. But we'll be back next week. And apologies again for this week for not being here yesterday, but kicked my toe. It's lucky it wasn't Darcy that I kicked. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Thank you again so much, gents.
Thanks, Fran.
Cheers.